Welcome back to the Weekend Report. I'm Masachaba Mposwa. Award-winning National Children's Theatre play, Innocence Lost, returns with its powerful message on human trafficking. The educational production aims to empower teenagers and children with knowledge about the dangers of being trafficked. The play is directed by Thando Msibi, a spiritual healer and teacher of deaf and hard of hearing children, and written by NCT CEO Moira Katz. We're joined now by director Thando Msibi. Good morning and welcome to Newzroom Afrika.
Good morning, Masachaba. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for this particular production. Tell us about the history of Innocence Lost. This is the second leg?
I believe it's about the third leg. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it started before COVID, yes, and then it's back again.
And were you part of it from its inception, or you joined?
It's my first time directing the play this year, yes.
All right, fantastic. So the journey that you've walked with this particular production, I believe, was inspired by one young lady. Could you tell us a little bit more about the inspiration behind this particular production piece?
So the production was inspired by a real encounter by the writer, Moira Katz, where she encountered Lesedi, who was trafficked, promised, a glamorous life, and moved to Yeovil only to find that she's being sold and being trafficked, So, and in real life, she actually did escape and went to a children's home where Mema Lerato worked on her to go back to her innocence. And actually, interesting enough, Moira is still in contact with the real Mema Lerato and has informed me that Lesedi is a true escaper because she went back into having a normal life. She's married with children in real life.
That is incredible.
Yes.
And she's one of the lucky few to have gotten to escape. Now,
Yes.
in having been exposed to her story, what can you tell us in terms of at what point did she realize that now she's being trafficked? Because I think even the definition of human trafficking is not quite widely understood.
So in the story, Lesedi realized, actually she didn't even have the vocab to say, I am being human trafficked or I'm being trafficked, She just saw the gentleman's reaction changing when he got to this promised land where he's forcing her to sleep with other men, forcing her to dance in sexual ways, hosting parties, and basically being told that, I've paid a lot of money for you, so you better do what I want. So that's when she realized that she needs to get away from the place. Only after her escape, she understood that actually she was being human trafficked.
And it must have been quite challenging taking such a big story, which is obviously very sensitive, and making it palatable for a young audience. How did you go about doing that?
So luckily, we have professional actors who are also in tune with what's happening around the world right now. And having to really go through the process of auditioning and finding people that are relevant linguistically, because that's my biggest thing, that if you speak a language that I understand, then I'll know exactly what you're saying. Mm. But if you're speaking another language, I wouldn't even understand, And going into the things that our children are exposed to, the current things that are trending. And that was quite a journey, but also trusting the process and really letting go of my personal preferences. I'm very conservative. So having to watch the proposals from the actors saying that, but kids dance like this. And I was, I shrugged quite a bit and I had to say, it's a story that needs to be told. I need to tap out of my belief, my comfort zone, and really tell the story to connect to the correct audiences.
And what other challenges did you encounter along the way in the preparations building up to this production?
The emotional taxation. For Lesedi, right from the time that she actually auditioned, she was in character. I needed to tell her, tap out, She went in. And all other characters like the story really revolves around Lesedi. And we had a lot of tears behind stage, you know. We had a lot of recovery moments, you know. So I think with art being play before getting into character, that really helped, you know, getting warm into the space and then tapping out as well. You know, it was very important for us to check out.
And what can you say about the entire cast that was selected to put together this production? Yeah.
You know, being a spiritual person, the cast is really amazing. You know, there's just this presence of the soul, you know, including the stage manager himself. They all had this deep connection with childhood, this deep connection with what children are exposed to. They're very much in tune with themselves spiritually and academically, luckily, you know. So they formed a very beautiful ensemble. It's tears, laughter, like all happening at once, but very powerful.
Yeah. And what was it like working with Moira Katz?
Oh, Moira. So when I was introduced to Moira, I was told she's very difficult to please. She doesn't want you to move from what she wrote. I was like, okay, that's fine. Let's do it, you know. And I found her. She's a woman of wisdom, you know. I think she's in her 90s now, and she's very sensitive. I don't know whether I should say unfortunately or fortunately, the industry requires you to be really, you know, direct, you know. So she's a mother. She's a mother, and her connection to the story is very powerful because she still keeps contact with the people even now. So it was very eye-opening and very educational for me as a young person.
Yeah. You mentioned the emotional toll of working on a production as essentially as sensitive and as heavy as this one. So when it comes to, you mentioned sometimes you'd have to tell Lesedi to tap out. You know, what is that process like when you have to really just try and get out of that space, get out of character?
So it's a lot of exercises, and you're not told just to tap out. I mean, I was proud to have an actor that is invested in the whole process and with the story as well, you know. So she would take us into the journey. Like, we would go, we would see, we would feel Lesedi, we would be Lesedi at some points, you know. And it was, I would say it was magical because we got to tap into that world to really understand the seriousness of human trafficking and what it does to an individual, even though she hasn't gone through it, like, personally. But we could see it and we could feel it, and we went with the story, really.
And what do you hope that people would take away from this production?
I'm really hoping that we can regain our children's innocence back. I'm really hoping that everyone who's anywhere in the world would play their part in keeping our children safe. Personally, from the space where I'm working in, I'm really hoping that parents are really aware of what they might be subconsciously subjecting their children to, you know. I know personally with my children, when I listen to their stories, I realize that they are being made to be vulnerable, you know, not being taken care of and not being able to communicate with your child as a deaf child is already an alarm, is a red flag, and the child is privy to a lot of things and exposed. And that in its own, when I sit and think about that, Mr. Chaba, I really feel like parents need to stand up and they need to pay attention to our little kids.
That's interesting. And you teach, of course, kids who are deaf and hard of hearing.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well,
that is such a niche. That is a niche vocation.
Yeah. So it was never in the plans. I mean, I was just doing communications, changing from one varsity to the next, and then I needed a filler by the time I was in Verts, I needed a filler. So I called a friend, oh, you've done sign language? Like, yeah. And then I was like, let me take it. And then I fell in love with the subject.
Wow.
And then I found myself walking into the Verts School of Art. And I mean, the rest is history. And then after that, I was like, oh, let me just do the PGCE, you know, as I do my arts. And I was requested to come and hold for someone who went for maternity leave. I wasn't planning to teach kids. I was terrified of kids. And after that, I just found my calling when I was there.
That's incredible. In what ways did your knowledge of sign language and your history as a teacher to deaf kids and kids who are hard of hearing help you as a director on Innocence Lost?
So Mashaba, that was from the onset. I don't want to lie. I'm very sensitive to the fact that our deaf and hard of hearing learners cannot fully access language. And I was very nervous because then I was working with artists that are hearing and they are used to that. And for me, it was always a note, like reading, like body language was very important for me, that in case you were not saying anything, how would the next person know exactly what you're saying? Deliver it with your body, engage your body fully. And that's how I carried it. And I think I saw the results when the ensemble came and it was performed at the school where I teach. And the learners actually engaged. They asked questions. They wanted to know more, and they could see what is happening. So I was very pleased with that.
That's incredible. Where can other children see this production?
They would need to contact National Children's Theatre so that the theatre production visits their school.
Fantastic.
Yes.
All right, the National Children's Theatre. Thank you so much for your incredible work, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.